last week we talked a lot about really what this course would be and what it wouldn't be. We also talked about turning on and making sure that we're in the right state of mind and the right emotional state before we start prospecting. Because most of our communication, is going to, that transference of emotion, which really all sales is, in my opinion, is not going to be verbal. It's going to be how we feel. And so I gave you an example with Tony Robbins on how to do an emotional flood exercise. Did anybody who was here last week give that another try?
Yes, I did too.
Well done. Well done. Highly recommend. Find what works for you, right? I'm not prescribing that you use Tony. Great job, Giselle. Great job, Karen. So it's not a prescription, but find something that really allows for you to get out of your head, get into your heart, and get into the right emotional state so that you can connect with the people and frankly, so that you can raise their emotional state, because at the end of the day, people don't remember what you're going to tell them, as the cliche goes, but they do remember the way you made them feel. So today we're going to talk about something a little different. And today's going to be a little bit more interactive than the last session was. And hopefully you'll see that as a good thing. But today what we're going to do is we're going to kind of build on what we've built so far. So after last class, which I'm assuming you didn't get this email, so we'll probably have to double down on this. But I asked everybody to complete their lifetime value of clients spreadsheet. Now, I'm guessing some of you guys didn't get this. So how many people on this call have listed their most valuable clients, quote unquote, by GCI? Go ahead and just let me know in the chat if you have this somewhere in your system. Giselle, great job. Rena, great job. So if you don't, one of the things that you want to do is you want to go out and lay out for yourself of all the business you've done in the past, however many years you can go back. At least, 5 to 7 if you've been in the business that long. If you can go back longer, even better. And what you want to do and what you're looking at here, and I'll resend this spreadsheet in the follow-up, but what you're looking at here is you're looking at how many transactions and how many referrals, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to give a tally for a transaction, for those that didn't catch this last week, a tally for a transaction, and obviously the GCI that brought in, and then another tally for a direct referral. So in this example, if you look over here to the left, if Steve and Sandra introduced Manola and Jesus, they would get one tally if Manola and Jesus did actually complete a transaction, okay? And the reason we want to do this is actually goes into a much larger conversation about how we want to prospect. And so what we're going to do as a next step, and what I had planned to share today, is we're going to go in and we're going to add another column to this spreadsheet. And eventually all this will end up in our Compass CRM because we want to work off of one system, but it's good to see it visually up front. And really what you're going to write down is you're going to write where you met these folks and then where you engage with them today. And I'll go into why that matters moving forward, but that's really the next step. So we want to calculate and account for how much GCI have and the number of transactions and how much GCI has each of these people brought in, both by way of transacting and referring. And then we want to ask ourselves, okay, well, where did I meet a client like this? Where do I continue to engage with a client like this? And that's going to help influence how we prospect moving forward. So for those that caught Chirag's data sheet webinar or class this week, this is very timely. And like I said, this course will run concurrently with a lot of what Chirag teaches and kind of build on it and take it to the next level as it pertains to prospecting, which I think should be beneficial to everybody. But really, like, what is your core for? Where do your clients come from? That's very, very important for you to know. And a lot of times what you'll find is that the amount of time you're putting into one particular area may not actually equate with the amount of GCI that's being brought in, right? And we want to become, as business owners, we want to become very well aware of that. We want to make sure that there's a good ROI, because ultimately, while we sell real estate, our inventory as salespeople and as professionals is time, right? I think you would agree with that. So what is your core for? Meaning, what are your 4 main verticals to bring in clients? And so just as a reference, when I send the slides, I've linked This is a screenshot of Kate and Chirag in their last session. You'll probably recognize that, but I've linked this as well. So if you haven't done your data sheet, you can click on this link. You can go back to their video and they walk you through how to create the data sheet for yourself. Okay. Now, question for you. Why do brands segment their offerings? Feel free to come off mute and just go for it. Why do you think brands segment their offerings? So if you look at Chase, for example, you know, I'm sure a lot of us have bank with Chase and recognize these cards. Why are there different cards here? What do you guys think?
So they can market to specific audience segments and use different types of messages and marketing and rewards to attract different, because you can't market one thing to everybody.
Exactly, Leslie. Exactly. What else do you guys think?
So they can capture the lion's share of a market, not just one in particular, but cast to everybody.
Yep, absolutely. And I'm sorry, who was that? The camera didn't actually pick you up there, so I didn't get the chance to see.
Hi, it's Aaron.
Hey, Aaron, thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. Does everybody agree with Leslie and Aaron? Is there any other reason why a brand would segment? So I actually agree with both of you guys. I think the reason that brand segment is because you can't be everything to everybody, right? And people really need to feel like you are the right, and I'm going to use a word that I'll come back to later, but you're the right guide for them. It needs to fit into their story. And one of the things we're going to talk about today is really, if you've read this book, it's called Building a Story Brand, and it's the SB7 framework. And I'll talk through why I think that's really relevant to what we're discussing here today. But you really want to make sure you understand, your segmentation of your clientele. And so what we're going to do here is after we build our lifetime value spreadsheet, right? I'm going to go back a couple slides here, but after we go ahead and build, I'm going the wrong way. 1 second. After we build our spreadsheet, what I want you to do is I want you to put your clients into no fewer than 3 segments. Now you can do this however you want. You can call them the sapphire, the platinum, the gold. You can call them the ABC, the 1, 2, 3, whatever that is. This is not a new concept. I'm sure many of you have gone through many trainings where they've said you have to have your A clients, B clients, C clients. I think personally that has limited value if you don't do this next step. And the next step is, what experience are you committed to giving each segment of these clients? So now I can go to this next slide, which I've already sort of unveiled, right? But what experience do these brands promise? Go ahead and come off mute. I'm sure we've probably engaged with these brands, but somebody tell me just quickly, what experience, and this is a safe space. You can be very blunt. If you don't agree with what somebody said, just let it go. It's fine. It's okay. But just curtly tell me, what experience does Marshall's promise?
Inexpensive.
Sure, absolutely. Was that you, Leslie, again?
It was me.
I love it, man. She's quick on the trigger. She's fantastic. Great job, Leslie.
It's lack of customer service, right? It's like go in and buy and leave, but Nordstrom's is different, I think.
Absolutely. And we'll totally get to Nordstrom's. Absolutely. But let's stick with Marshall's for a second. So you see Marshall's, you've been to a Marshall's. What's the experience? So it's inexpensive. What else?
You figure you're going to get savings.
You're going to get savings.
Bargain hunting.
Bargain hunting. Absolutely. Now, what's the difference between a Marshall's and a Target?
Target makes you feel like you've got a little bit of a brand, like you can find something that's inexpensive, but curated a little bit.
Absolutely. Person, how do I see the people that are speaking? How do we do that? Because it's working for some folks and not for others. This person on this call. Okay.
Yeah, I believe you might need to spotlight.
When I look at these brands, Stephen, I'm thinking lower, then middle tier, and then upper tier shopping
Okay.
experience.
Okay. So let me ask you this, and I think that's a fair assessment. However, are there people on this call who shop at all three or shop at more than one?
I do.
Absolutely. Yeah. And
Marshall's-
so
Marshall's
I
is like-
think, and so I think the reason I'm saying that is because they've each done a good job. And I think everybody gets the point here, but they've each done a good job of communicating the reasons why we would go to them for the completion of our endeavor, right? So we go to Marshall's because we're looking for that savings or because we're looking for a bargain. Now, I heard we only got halfway through, but for Target, I heard someone say you're getting a little bit more of a brand. So would it be a fair assessment to say that I'm going to go to Target because I want something that is at least, of a decent quality, but I don't want to break the bank. And frankly, I'm not super concerned about the brand name attached to it. I just need something that's a little bit more functional. Would you guys agree with me on that? Hit yes if you'd agree with that assessment of Target. Okay. Now, Nordstrom. What makes Nordstrom?
Customer service.
Their service.
Yep.
Expensive.
Brands.
Yep. So you go to Nordstrom because for a lot of folks, you go to Nordstrom because if you've ever tried to return something to Nordstrom, they don't give you any fuss. They say, absolutely, they give you a new one, even if it's completely your fault, right? My girlfriend has ruined shoes and then taken them back and been like, here, and they're, here you go. No problem. Right. So the point I'm making is that they've committed to the type of experience and customer service that they want to offer. Now, I'm not here saying that one is better, worse than the other. What I am saying, though, is that they're committed to their experience. And so what I would highly, highly recommend is that we all get extremely clear on what experience are we committed to for each segment of our market. Right now, how does that really show up? I mean, what comes next? And so one of the things I want to pivot to, if I could, just really quickly, is if you haven't seen this before, in the platform, there is a buyer experience scorecard and a seller experience scorecard, and I will link both of them here. But really, just very, very, very quickly, all this is going to do is just give you the opportunity to kind of score yourself on a 1 to 10 scale in each one of these aspects of taking a buyer through a transaction or taking a seller through a transaction. And so I think this would be a great foundation to just kind of ask yourself, hey, where's the gap, right? What is my experience honestly today? And then what is my experience? What do I want my experience to be for 2023 and beyond? Because, and then go find out from your clients, actually, if that is their experience, right? If you've achieved the goal, because sometimes, you may have the best of intentions, but it just doesn't land the way that you want it to land. And I think, the most important takeaway is, how do my clients really feel about the service that I'm offering and the service that I'm going to continue to offer in the future? Hope that makes sense. So going into our next slide here, the other thing that you can think about is, how do you plan on delivering that promise? And that's where it gets really fun for me, because that's where we get to be creative on how we want to prospect. There's no right or wrong way. It really just has to lend itself to your natural skill sets and the things that you like to do. Effectively, Walmart and Amazon, they're not the same company, and I'm sure you could tear the statement apart if you really wanted to. But at the end of the day, they offer the fact that they have everything, and you're going to save some money. Is that fair? You go into a Walmart, and you're going to be able to find whatever you want. And they've done the work of making sure that it is in Bentonville. They have a process that I'm sure some of you, if you read a couple of things about Walmart, it has been streamlined over and over and over again to get the lowest prices from vendors. They actually walk you down a long hallway, and they sit you in these rooms with like these long tables, so that almost like interrogation rooms, so that by the time you get to your meeting, you realize you are just a number. You're one of, you may have the coolest widget in the world, but you're one of 1,000 other widgets that they're going to buy today. So you feel really unimportant. That's all just psychological warfare that they've put in place to make sure that they get the lowest price from you, because that is their promise. That's what they're offering. And Amazon does the same thing, but in a digital way, right? So Amazon allows us to get what we want. It's the convenience factor. And a lot of times we can get it for less money. So why am I saying all this? I'm saying this because you really want to think through, okay, not only what experience am I committed to, but then also, how do I plan on conveying that? How do I plan on delivering that experience to my clients? And so this is the SB7 guide, right? And the SB7 guide comes from the Story brand. And I'm going to probably come back to this from time and time again, but this is effectively the same framework that every story follows for the most part. Now, how many people, just let me know via the chat, have seen this before and know what I'm talking about when I say the SB7 guide? Oh, 1 second. No, I see a lot of no's. Okay, cool. Well, then we're going to learn something new today. Fantastic. This is really gotta stop doing this. I keep clicking on this thing. Okay. SB7 guide, really simply, is there's a character, and that character has a problem. And because of the problem, the character meets a guide who gives them a plan, calls them to action, and that action actually ends in a success rather than ending in a failure. Now, just to prove me right here, if you've seen the movie Titanic, let's someone walk me through our heroine here, played by Kate Winslet in the ever iconic movie, which pretty much is just Romeo and Juliet on the water. Can you please walk me through the SB7 guide, starting with Kate Winslet as a character? Who can walk me through? Oh, come on, you can do this. So Kate,
I'll give it a stab.
Go ahead, please do.
Okay, so I think her name is Rose. Her problem is that she's a rich girl that is getting set up in a marriage that she doesn't want to get married with. She meets Jack, and Jack gives them a plan to run away. And then I don't know what the call to action and everything else is, except for that she doesn't end up with him.
Absolutely. So just to build on that, great job, Aaron. Thank you. Just to build on that, right? It is Rose. So Rose has a problem. She feels trapped. She doesn't like the life that she sees in front of her. She's set to be married to a guy that doesn't really suit her. She meets Jack, right? Who gives her a plan. They're going to run away together. Calls her to action simply by asking her out, right? They've got you trapped, Rose. And that fire that I love, that fire is going to go out, right? Calls her to action. You could also say he calls her to action when he pulls her over the railing from jumping off the boat, right? And what does that do in the end? In the end, that saves her from being with the wrong guy who inevitably, blows his brains out in the crash of 29. And ultimately she finds peace, happiness, love, all those things. So why do I share this with you? I share this with you because when you're prospecting, you need to keep in mind that you are the guide, not the character. I see too often, and I don't mean to be in any way accusatory, but I think it bears mentioning. I see too often in the marketing of our real estate, we are pretending to be the hero. Look what I sold. Look what I did. Look at me. And we're doing that because we want to get visibility, but nobody cares. In my opinion, all they care about is their story. So tell me the story. You just sold something? Great. Tell me the story. Tell me, whose house did you sell? Where are they going now? How did you guide them so that they averted a problem? How did you get them to the end, which ends in success? That's what I want to hear, because that's the story that I can relate to. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So keep in mind, every time you're prospecting, every time you're making a phone call, every time you have an open house, every time you take clients out to see property, every time you throw an event, that you're the guide. And everybody's on a different journey. And your job is to figure out, where is that journey going? And how can you help them? How can you give them the plan? And then how can you call them to action? So the reason that that will be helpful, I hope, is we've got to make sure that in our prospecting, do we pass what's called the grunt test? I know it's a phenomenal name. It just sounds great, the grunt test. But the grunt test really is, can people tell within 10 seconds of dealing with your marketing, within a minute or two of meeting you, of speaking with you, what you offer and how it will make their lives better? That's the key piece. And then how do I buy it? So what do you offer? How will it make their lives better? And that's why I've highlighted it. And then how do I go about buying it? Now, obviously, we need to change this a little bit for our business, because there's not like a click now button to buy. But at the same time, I think it's relevant, because it really, each time we go out and we say, okay, I'm gonna invite people to this event, I'm gonna make this phone call, let's make sure we run it through this filter. And I think you're gonna find that to be beneficial. So many of you, if you attended the webinar, saw that I call this the fish frame. And really all that is it's your layout of what are the tools in your toolbox, right? To mix analogies, which I tend to do all the time, mix metaphors. So sorry about that in advance. But what are you going to do? What do you have in your toolbox to really reach out to your clients and to help them along their journey? So again, just as a refresher, if you hadn't seen this before, I'm going to go through this really quickly. If you want a little bit more detail, you can reach out to me and I'm happy to go through it. If you would like, you can check out the webinar where we go through it as well. But your ponds are really, where are you going to get your clients from? So are they coming from, your open houses, your past clients? Are they coming from groups that you're a part of? Are they coming from your church? Are they coming from previous school? So where are you going to get your clients from? Your nets are going to be the things you create in order to increase the likelihood that you're going to make contact and that you're going to actually have a conversation that's going to help you, either inform you as to where the client is on their story and their travels, or have a conversation, frankly, that allows you to give them a plan, right? Allows you to discuss a real estate transaction or get a referral to somebody who you can give a plan to. So that can be everything from an open house, coffee and drinks with someone, an event you create, whatever that might be. Your lines are simply just lines of communication. How are you, going back to that Amazon Walmart slide? How do you plan on conveying your value? What is easier for you to do, and what do you like and enjoy doing that you're going to do consistently that's going to actually produce an ROI? And that's why, again, using that data sheet in the beginning is so important, because you may have something that you love to do. It's just not producing for you. And so that's where we have to be honest with ourselves and be pliant and be malleable, like I mentioned in the webinar, because we need to adjust to what is really going to work for us when we prospect here in 23 and beyond. Your bait. Now, a lot of people don't like the word bait because of bait and switch in that phrase. I'd invite you to remove that sort of connection and association in your mind. But bait is really just, what is it that is going to be attractive when you make contact to the person, right? What are they going to see as beneficial to them? So is that are you offering that your personal relationship as the thing that is going to attract them? Are you offering, a CMA or access to concierge or clarity just to what the market is? Or are you offering a vendor referral that's going to help save them time, energy, and money? So what is it that you're really offering when you make contact with that person? And then what are your hooks? And your hooks really just are style. What do you tend to say? Because we tend to run patterns of behavior. We tend to end up saying the same things the same way, and then we get the same response. And as cliche as this might sound, Einstein's theory of insanity, I'm sure we all know, right? We do the same thing, but we want different results. I want to grow my business. Fantastic. How much do you want to grow it? I want to double it this year. Awesome. What are you going to change? Nothing. Okay, cool. Well, then how's that going to happen, right? So the idea is, what do we tend to say that's really going to stick in the minds and hearts of our potential clients? So that's where I want you to kind of just take a step back and think about, okay, where are my clients coming from? What do I do currently to increase the likelihood to set up nets? What are my lines of communication that I'm using? Which ones am I not using? What am I offering when I do make contact? What could I be offering? And then how do I present that? And I'm more than happy, like I said, to walk everybody through if there are additional questions or you'd like, examples of how to present these hooks and how to, lay this out for yourself. I'm happy to do that. But this is going to be a foundational piece in future sessions, because this really is where you're going to see from a very high level, okay, what ingredients do you have in your kitchen? What tools in your toolbox, right? What's in your tackle box, to put 3 metaphors all together. But how are you going to really design your business now and moving forward? Any questions on that? Feel free to come off mute. I saw 2 amens. I appreciate that, guys. Thank you. No questions? Okay. Well, for bonus points, if you'd like, if you want to dive in more deeply to the SB7 framework and really figure out how you can take that into your business, I recommend reading Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. And I think you'll find that it's a very quick read. It's very simple, but it really will inform a lot of, I think, how you look at your marketing and prospecting moving forward. Okay. So for next week, what we're going to do here is we're going to go and let me just move this up real quick. We're going to write out the type of experience that we're committed to for each segment. And I don't care what you call it again, it's your Sapphire, your Platinum, whatever that might be, you're going to write out what you're committed to doing. And again, write from the experience back. So it's just like if they're watching a movie, how do you want them to feel when they leave the theater? So when they think of you, when they interact with you, how do you want them to feel? And then just work backwards to say, okay, well, then what am I going to do to help them feel that way? Am I going to send them handwritten notes? Am I going to, we're not looking to reinvent the wheel here. Am I going to be making, gratitude calls and forecasting calls? Am I going to be asking them to attend events where they're going to meet amazing other great people that help them in other ways that I have no idea what could be possible? But how am I going to really influence and impact the lives and hearts of the people that I care about? So write out the experience you're committed to providing. And I may call on a few people next week. So just a heads up, because I'd love to hear from you. And if you have thoughts or questions, there is a forum. So I will send a follow-up email. In that, there will be instructions on how you get on the forum. And I want you to make sure you collaborate and share there as well. And then, again, and this is kind of the second point, but just think about how you plan on, and this is where your fish frame will come in. I call this a fish frame, this pond net line thing, but this is where you're going to lay out exactly, the options you have in order to execute upon delivering on that brand experience. Miss Jane Camlin, oh my goodness, it is so good to see your face.
Hello,
How
Steve.
are you?
I'm well. How are you? Good to see yours as well. This is very helpful. I did have a question for you regarding the fish. What do you call it? The fish?
I call it a fish frame.
Fish frame. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Being that you're giving us homework in regard to this fish frame for next week, is there any way that you have, well, I think you said, I took a picture of it, so I have it, but each frame you gave like a little bit, like a 1 or 2 words of what that frame actually meant, which doesn't indicate there. So now that we have to kind of use that frame to do homework, is there any way that you could give us, or do you have something, even if we could write down now what each frame means?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Well, so in line with the theme of today at CSC, our whole idea and what we want to deliver an experience is that if we share something with you, we give it to you, right? So what you're going to get is you're going to get this actual spreadsheet. Okay. You're also going to get the instructions and the descriptions for each section in that spreadsheet. So in the follow-up email, everything will be laid out. It will say, this is what a pond is. This is what a net
Got
is.
it. Okay.
And it will even have some of the things you see here because it will give you, ideas and kind of maybe provoke some thoughts. But great question, Jane. Great question.
Thank you.
And so good to see your face, by the way.
Same here.
Any other questions? Okay. All right. So there will be a follow-up email. There will be slides in that email. If you don't get it, Herson, should they reach out to you or should they reach out to me? What's the process if they don't get that email? Because I want to make sure that moving forward, everybody gets all the content that we're sharing and they can get to it right away. Herson, are you there? Oh, please email CSC community at Chirag Shah Coaching for any additional assist. I don't even know what that means. Okay, so I will deal with this on the back end, but I assure you everyone who is on this call will get an email from me. So you know, if you didn't get an email from me within 24 hours, something's wrong, right? So that is my promise to you. And then again, if you have questions throughout the week, my email, I'm going to put in the chat right here, Steven@ChiragShahCoaching.com. I am more than happy to sit down with any of you one-on-one for 15 minutes and just do a consultation, or if you have additional questions on the content, I'm happy to do that. Bear with me on availability, but I will make sure I do my best to get everybody in. Okay.
Steven,
Thank you guys again. I greatly appreciate it. And I will see you next week if there are no other questions.
Steven, aren't you in resources under the training part? Can't all this be put in resources?
So that is who was speaking? Was that
Joyce Bartel? Sorry, just a picture here today.
No. It's a lovely picture and it's great to hear your voice, Joyce.
It's a new one. It's not 20 years old.
So I hear you on the resources. This is a terrible way to answer this question. So here's my heads up, but that is above my pay grade. So the way that they decided to lay it out, I think, don't hold me to this, but I think is they're putting the content in the session itself. So what you want to do is you want to navigate, and I'll put the instructions again in my email for this, but it's very simple to do. You're just going to click on the actual session. So where you went to events today to click, it'll be in past events. It'll be today, and you'll see all the slides, all that kind of good stuff. I actually agree with you. Resources makes a lot of sense, and I will be happy to pass that along. I just don't want to make promises to you that I can't keep because they don't ask me where we're putting stuff, frankly.
Okay. Thank you.
You got it. Cool. All right, guys. Well, it's been a pleasure. I'm excited. Thank you for taking the time, putting the energy in. Let's make sure we hop on that lifetime value of clientele. Let's segment our offering. Reach out to me with questions. And I'm, again, going to invite you to create accountability partners. This can be a lot of fun, actually. If you just start kind of riffing with people on what they're doing, what you're doing, you might find, hey, that's a great idea. I can incorporate that right away. Or I would never do that, but that's good for you. I'm glad that works for you. That's not my style, right? So highly recommend use the, thank you, Maria, I appreciate that. But use the group that we have here. I think that's one of the biggest benefits of you guys taking the time to be in a part of a course like this is you've got many, many minds at work, right? And two heads are better than one. Cool. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
It.
Bye.
Be well.
Amanda.